In a way.
Okay, I'm going to start the second act with a short story that I wrote for my friend's nephew. It's called The Ronster, for Ronnie. Once upon a time, there was a giraffe with no neck. He was known as Ronnie to his family, the Ronster to his friends, and Ron Stump to his bullies. Sadly, he had no friends and only saw his family at Christmas, so most of his time he was just called Ron Stump. Ronnie dreamed of being a rock star, but his no neck held him back. People bullied him because he looked silly, making him uncool, and he couldn't do that wiggly neck thing rock stars do when they get to a good part in their song. He didn't really like being called Ron Stump as it didn't suit his desired rock star image, so every now and then he would do something he thought might be rock and roll, like throw a monkey out of a tree or get arrested at his own gig. Sadly, he couldn't reach the treetops to throw any monkeys out because of his no neck, and he never got any gigs, so he never got arrested. This led Ronnie to do even less truly rock and roll things, like pick on people smaller than him, and most of those times led to disaster, but today they turned out kind of rock and roll. One day, after a long stint of being made to eat dirt because that's what the long necks decided he should do, and being called Ron Stump a lot, he was doing the usual, hanging his head low. He never had much choice in that matter, really. Kicking the dusty ground, which didn't really work out in his favour because it blew back in his face, when he noticed a small huddle of moving things in the reachable distance. He lumbered over. Giraffes with no necks don't have many ways of moving, though Ronnie was one of a kind, so we don't have any evidence of this except for his efforts. The huddle was chittering and squeaking and jumping excitedly about something. As Ronnie got closer, he saw that the excitement was actually only coming from 3 little meerkats, and the other one was having none of it at all. They were poking him with sticks and pulling his fur and laughing. The one in the middle was just standing very still. He seemed to be concentrating very hard. On seeing Ronnie, his eyes changed a little from brown to slightly grey. The other meerkats followed his gaze and saw Ronnie looming over them. Giraffes are much taller than meerkats, regardless of necks, you see. Their eyes all turned to brilliant grey and then a funny kind of purple, and then there was a little pause before one of them screamed, "Run!" which they did promptly into the nearest bushes. The middle meerkat remained very still, staring up at Ronnie, who was still after his rock and roll fix for the day. Ronnie said, "I've noticed you around. I find you very unattractive." "What?" said the meerkat. "You're so ugly," said Ronnie. "I see. Is that it?" Yeah. Well, that's kind of mean. Do you always insult your dinner first?" "Dinner? I don't want to eat you. I eat leaves and things." "You eat leaves?" The little meerkat burst into giggles. Ronnie let out a sort of raw cum bleat that he'd been working on. "Wow, you're like some kind of monster," said the meerkat. "Ronster?" Ronnie grinned. "I've been trying to get people to call me that for ages and they never listened. You're my best friend." The little meerkat thought for a moment, stunned. Right. Friends. Friends don't eat each other, do they?" "No." "Well then, yeah, buddy, I'm your friend. Nice to meet you. My name's Cuckoo. I mean, Coco. They just call me Cuckoo. I don't like it." "Cuckoo? That's kind of stupid." "Okay, you're pushing it. Sorry." "Why are you so mean, anyway?" Ronnie looked at his feet. He hadn't really thought it through. "'Cause it's rock and roll." "Rock and roll? Not our friend. Rock and roll means cool. You need to be cool to rock and roll." How do you do that?" Ronnie asked. "Well, you don't have to do anything. Just be yourself. The rock and roll will come to you." "Sounds easy." "It is, except there are always going to be people who don't think you're cool. But you have to ignore them. You are what you make yourself." "I see." Ronnie looked at Coco. "You make yourself the poking thing?" Coco thought for a moment. Yes, I do. But not anymore." "What are you going to be now?" And that is the story of how the Ronster finally got a manager and his first gig, and everyone to call him the Ronster, and how Coco stood up for himself and started doing things he liked, like listening to the Ronster's awesome records. Pretty cool, don't you think? Don't you wish you had a name that started with the? Yeah, me too. The end.